Hey, Brian. Hey, everyone.
Hey,
Excellent to be here. Good to be back from the holiday break. And let's just kick it off.
yeah,
Hello, and yeah, let's do it. Hello, and hello, and welcome to Python Bytes, where we deliver Python news and headlines directly to your earbuds. This is episode 416, recorded January 13th, 2025. I'm Michael Kennedy.
and I'm Brian Ocken.
And this episode is brought to you by us. Check out our stuff that we're doing over at Brian's course. Where's your course, Brian? I forgot the URL.
PythonTest.com.
PythonTest.com. That's right.
Okay.
And over at Talk Python Training, links are in the podcast player show notes or on the homepage, all of those things. Follow us on Mastodon and Blue Sky. We love to connect with people over there. In fact, Brian, you don't really have visibility into this yet, but there's a bunch of recommendations I got from, I think it was Blue Sky, which fills out many of my topics today. So
Nice.
yes, and I encourage people to follow us out there. Use the starter pack on my profile if they wish. And if you want to get all this stuff sent to you automatically as an email, and this might be getting an upgrade, we're not entirely sure yet. We're playing around with some ideas here.
Yeah.
Content-wise, but you should definitely subscribe to the email, pythonbytes.fm, click on newsletter. Guess what? You'll get a newsletter if you do it. That'd be awesome. We'd love to talk to you there. And with that, Happy New Year, Brian. It's been a couple of weeks we've been on break, some of it by decision, some of it mandatory by family stuff, all those kinds of things. That's on my end, but welcome back. Happy New Year.
Welcome back. Yes, thanks. It's really good to be back. I'm glad to start talking coding in Python on the air again.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. You get to this age where you get phone calls out of the blue. You've got to come help your father with this because he's, old and can't do stuff. And just sometimes you jump on a plane for non-vacation reasons and it's not as fun as it could be, but you got to do it. That was me last week. Okay, well, how about this week? What do you got for us?
Well, I was thinking that this week, at the start of the new year, people might be thinking of some changes. So some of the changes they might be thinking about is terminal or shell changes. If you're kind of a terminal person, and especially if you're a Mac OS or Linux user, one of the things that just came out recently is Ghosty. So at GHOSTTY, get it? Go TTY.
Anyway, yeah, that's clever. That's clever.
It's a fast, feature-rich, and cross-platform terminal emulator that uses platform-native UI and GPU acceleration. So super fast, super featured. Why am I covering this? It's kind of fun, actually. Ghosty, have you heard about this, Michael?
I have absolutely heard about it. I have it installed. I have played with it. It is fun. It is not yet dethroned Warp as my way to my go-to yet. But I like it. Both of them are written in high-speed languages. I think Ghosted is Zig Zig language is awesome, and Warp is Rust. But yeah, I love it.
Okay, yep. So Ghosty just came out. Let's see, they did the announcement of a release in October, but it just came out at the end of the year. I think it was the 31st of December or something like that. Into the year. But it's so what? Why am I talking about this? Because it's kind of fun, and also it has some interesting heritage. So this is started by Mitchell Hashimoto, which is one of the co-founders of HashiCorp. I think he left HashiCorp in 2023, but anyway, some nice heritage. It's feature rich. What does feature rich mean? It's fast, feature rich, fast. It's got themes. It's got all that sort of stuff. But a couple of reviews that I was reading of it were saying that it really is pretty fast, and partly because it's less code. They really the code for it is a lot more streamlined than a lot of other things, and having it be native and really focusing on some of the speed and as well as features. So the tagline really, when you go to the About page, it says there are many excellent terminal emulators available. but they all kind of force you to either choose speed, features, or a native UI. And Ghosty wants to do all three, and I kind of like that. I've had issues with things that don't really look like, they don't really look like a native feel. Anyway, I've just downloaded it, started playing with it a little bit. Haven't done much with it, but a lot of people on Blue Sky were talking about it in Mastodon over the break. As far as shells go, so Ghosty does integrate with shells, with different shells. It integrates with. It says some of the features require integrating with your shell. It automatically does automatic injection of shell integration for Bash, Z Shell, Fish, and Elvish. And I've been thinking about Fish because Fish was actually in the news as well. Fish.
I see you're into jam bands. I got it.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about Fish. Anyway, but an announcement in December as well is that Fish Shell is the 4.0 is in beta, and it is rewritten in Rust. So that's kind of fun.
Do you know what it was written in before?
I think it was C or C++. Yeah, a port from C++ to Rust. So not sure about the reasons around that, but it's kind of fun. It'd be fun to get if you want to contribute or whatever. I think there's more energy around Rust than C++ right now.
Yeah,
but one of the things that I'm intrigued by with Fish, because I've been setting up new environments lately and stuff, and I like my environment, my shell environment, but keeping it all, like all the extras on different machines is a little tricky. And apparently Fish has I haven't used Fish, but apparently Fish has a lot of stuff built in that other people have to configure later. So I'll give it a shot also.
Yeah, I'll check that out. Very nice.
Yeah, are you used to do Z Shell and Oh My Z Shell? Are you still doing that? Okay.
If I use the regular terminal or iTerm or something like that, then I am. But I think with Warp, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm sure that it doesn't run Z Shell, not directly anyway. It may underneath the cover somehow, but it feels like it kind of does its own thing, Yeah. And I'm enjoying it. It comes pre-built with a lot of stuff that I used to install, like McFly and other types of stuff.
Well, so I used to be a heavy duty Z Shell user and had tons of configuration changes. But when I started doing a bunch of machines, I kind of just went back to vanilla Bash and with just a Bash RC file. But we'll see.
It's the history. The history is so hard on Bash compared to some of the other things, unless you configure it right.
Yeah. Anyway, what you got for us?
All right, let's take it for a loop here. This one comes to us from Owen Lamont, and I told you stuff was coming from Blue Sky, and Owen has a special honor in this episode. He doesn't know it, but he might have a perfect trifecta sort of thing going on here. So this one that we're going to cover, he pointed out, and then the next one we're going to cover is my second main topic, is actually created by him. Then something else, I can't remember exactly what it was referred to. So he's got 3 things in 3 different sections, which is pretty wild. So Owen, thanks for sending this in, and like I said, I encourage lots of people to send their stuff in, because that is super helpful, and we'd love to have it up. So this one is called WindLoop. Now, something that's a hassle is if you're working in async IO. Well, async IO is not as high performance as it could be, right? So there are things like UVlib, which is the backend powering things like UVLoop, hence WindLoop, UVLoop. The problem is UVLoop is not compatible with Windows, even though the foundation of libuv is compatible. Make that make sense, huh? So this person came along, worked on it, Visonex, and said, all right, I've been waiting for people to set this up and make it work. And well, I guess I'm going to have to do it myself. So it said, because nobody was willing to step up after so many years of waiting, I went ahead and downloaded the source code for UVLoop, started modifying the source code to be Windows compatible by carefully removing and changing parts that were not made for Windows, such as forking processes rather than launching subprocesses, and so on and so on. So here's does it have any benchmarks? Where are your benchmarks? I think it might actually. No. Yeah, it does have some benchmarks. So this is a way to replace the async IO event loop to upgrade it to faster performance, much like UVLoop does for Mac and Linux. But you can just do that here, and you can kind of use them both, right? You can just do sort of a import, try, except like try to import this, or check your platform and import the right thing, and just sort of swap between them.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So it says if you run it with the different policies, it'll show you like how much faster you can get. Like it gets, I don't know, is this like 5 times faster or something for some benchmark? All those things go. And then where are we? They've got some nice examples. Yeah, it says check out the how to use WindLoop when UVLoop is not available. So it just basically says if the platform is Win32, Cygwin, or CLI, just import the run method from WindLoop. Otherwise, import it from UVlib. You could also probably a nice way would just to be set the async IO event loop policy before an event loop comes into existence, which then when it goes and creates a new event loop, automatically it'll use the WindLoop or UVLoop one or whatever. But people can check it out. It shows how to use it with fast API. And things like that. So pretty neat, I think.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So if you're doing async IO stuff and you're on Windows and you've been like, people keep telling me UVLoop is awesome. I hear you. I can't use it. WindLoop, check it out. And thanks, Owen, for sending that in.
I also I really like that it kind of works with both, or you can have some examples to use both, because there are people that are developing on Windows and pushing to Linux. So
or you're a framework creator and you have users on both.
Yeah, which you should think about, because like we've said before, it's like over half of the Python users are using Windows. So.
Yeah, the majority. If you single down to a single platform, the biggest one is Windows, and then it breaks into pieces, right?
Yeah. Luckily, all the other pieces are Linuxy sort of things. Yeah.
That's right. And I think that's the problem, is right. Everything is POSIX-like, except for Windows. Right? Yeah. That's a challenge. So
yeah.
Oh well.
Anyway, okay. Well, let's take a look if I get this right. Oh, I've got some news from Astral, a couple of Astral topics, UV and Ruff. First off, I saw this little notice that there's a Ruff 2025 style guide, and I'm like, what do we need a new style guide for 2025? But I'm really, there's a bunch of stuff in here, but what I'm really excited about is the modifications to the F string formatting. And we're getting really nerdy here if you're getting excited about F string formatting. But
F yes, there was a great sticker for a while that said F yes when F strings came out.
So one of the cool things is, I guess it didn't deal with the formatting the expressions inside the interpolated expressions inside of the curly braces inside of an F string. And so, often it's just a variable name, which isn't a big deal, but you can put code in there, and now Ruff will format that correctly. So
that's cool.
It's doing this shows an example of layer method plus 5. And it was 2 stuck together. So now Ruff will spread it out a little bit.
I do that all the time. Like if I have a time delta and I want to know how much time, I want to represent that in milliseconds, but it has a dot total seconds. So I'll just times 1,000.
Yeah. And actually more and more now I'm like, do I really need to assign this to a variable just so I can stick it into an F string? I'll just stick the code in the F string. So I'm doing that more and more. So having Ruff deal with that is great. But with that also, there's a bunch of other cool things like Quotes are now normalized in F strings according to a project configuration. So if you set it to be double quotes or single quotes, it'll deal with that. But and they're left untouched if normalizing would result in an invalid F string. Of course, it checks to make sure it doesn't muck things up. Looks for unnecessary escape, like backtick or the the backslash if it's not needed to be there. So that's nice.
Yeah, that's excellent. Like, for example, you have single quote and then you want to have another single quote in the string. You got to escape it. It'll, rather than leave it there, it'll convert it, the outer string, to double quotes. So you just don't need the escape at all, which is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one of the last things is it looks at the interpolated expressions in an F string to see whether it might be acceptable to split the F string over multiple lines. So and it has done that with strings of splitting it on multiple lines. But I don't think it did that with F strings before because it could have mucked up the interpolation. Now it's figuring that out and doing the right thing. So just lots of good cleanup work for F strings. There's other stuff in here too that I think is really nice. There's a prefer wrapping the assert message. Basically, do I care about this? Not really, except for I like the new one better. It looks better. So sure, better looking code is always a good thing. So thanks, Astral, for not like ignoring. I mean, Ruff is why we fell in love with these guys in the first place, and
yeah.
So I'm glad that there's still work going on here. Now I've got a bit of a tangent that seems like a tangent, but not really. The Python 3.14, 3.14, the Pi release of Python is in alpha right now. As of December 17th, there's the alpha 3. So it's been in alpha for a while. But so you can play with it, but how do you play with it if you're kind of a UV person? Well, Charlie Marsh posted just on the 7th that you can use what is it? UV Python install,
yeah,
3.14, and then you do -- preview because 3.14 isn't there yet. But if you use the preview, it works. And after I did this, now I don't have to use preview when I just say like UV venv. And then pick a Python version.
Just Python, 3.14 or whatever. Yeah,
it just works because now it's on my machine. So, so there's a preview mode to grab that, which is really nice. I like it.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, they're doing really good work over there, and you're right that Ruff started it all. So that's really cool to see.
And one of the things that I've noticed that I wasn't really up for a lot of the big packagers to create my Pi project TOML for me and to start a project, but UV init, it rocks.
Okay,
it does just enough. Like if you pop into a new project and just say UV, and like if you start coding and you say UV init, it creates enough boilerplate that's good, but not too much. Like it'll generate a Pi project TOML for you, but it's not too big. You can just add more stuff to it.
That is such a balancing act, right? Like, I'm going to create a new project, run this cookie cutter or this other template. Do you want to use Postgres? How about Celery? Do you like caching? What kind of RM? Like, whoa. I just need to like a Pi project TOML on a few things, and what's the right layout, relative structure. Let's not overdo it,
Yeah, let's not
too much opinion.
And then also UVSync. I'm using a UVSync all the time. So you could clone a project and do UVSync, and it'll pick up the project TOML and create a virtual environment and all that. So
nice.
That.
Well, I really appreciate your perfect segue, because this next topic of mine is called UV-Secure.
Nice.
Pretty awesome. This was the one created by Owen Lamont, and he's been working on it for a little while. And people might be familiar with pip audit. So pip audit will go and look at what is installed in your virtual environment. So I've got a virtual environment. I've installed some packages through whatever pip install -e or through just pip install or dash and requirements, however you get it, right? You've got all those requirements installed. And what if there's some kind of malware or some other horrible thing that you mistyped, like Jengagu, or I don't know, whatever, like somehow you miss a letter and you get something terrible, or something was just taken over. It was fine, and then it wasn't fine. This will go, pip audit will go back and talk to, I can't remember exactly what it's going back to, but there's an API that checks for vulnerabilities in different packages. And basically, if a vulnerability is found, it's listed there. You'll know, right?
Cool.
So that's great. But that requires you to have all those things installed.
Oh,
and it doesn't work. It doesn't like look at things like the UV lock file. So UVSecure allows you to ask, hey, what is the status and vulnerability story of my project before I install them? Right? It's good to know, hey, you've installed a virus that is now running loose on your computer. You'll want to try to work on that, get it out. It's better to know before you install it. Yeah. Right? And so when Owen submitted this to us, I'm like, this is awesome, but I'm not a UV sync kind of guy. I'm a UV pip install and a UV pip compile to generate a requirements.txt file. So he said, no problem. I'll update it to also do requirements files. And then I ran it, just go in to the working folder for Python Bytes and say UV-secure. So first of all, you can install it with UV as a tool or with pipx or however you want. Then you say UV-secure, and it'll say, I'm looking at this requirements file, or I'm looking at this lock file, or whatever it is. And it'll take a minute because it's, the Python Bytes project has 86 packages it uses. So it calls that API 86 times and gets a response. There's a bit of a delay there. I'm sure you could parallelize that, but maybe harm the API. I don't know how much it can take in parallel. But anyway, it says if there's a problem or whether everything looks safe. And hey, everything looks good. Gotta love that.
Nice.
Yeah, so nice work on that, Owen. And yeah, people can check out UVSecure.
Cool.
Yep. And yeah, there it is. I'm being checked to see if I'm secure, trying to pull it up. But yeah, scan your UV lock file for dependencies with known vulnerabilities, and now also works with requirements.txt files that were generated by UV. I imagine with others as well, pinned ones at least,
Yeah, I mean, people might write their own now. Who knows? Whatever.
Yeah. They might. All right. That's it for our main items, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. You got any extras?
Just I guess a little bit over the break. I did play around with PyTest more and started testing code again. So we talked about doing seasons, so I thought, yeah, what the heck, I'll shift over. And so after 9.5 years and 223 episodes, season 2 is starting. So going to do PyTest plugins. So please, anybody, so there's an episode up just introducing the season. They'll be probably short or long, depending on what we want to talk about for different plugins. Some of them are going to combine plugins like all the orderings together or something or whatever, or individual ones. So if you'd like to submit your favorite plugin or something you'd like me to take a look at, go ahead. And how would you do that? You would either go to Blue Sky or Mastodon, or I recently added a contact form on pythontest.com. I have to add my Blue Sky to that contact form also.
Ooh, come on now. Don't forget it.
Anyway, so that's my extra.
Excellent. And real-time follow-up. You have Henny out there points out that Sneak maybe is possible. Does something similar. Yeah, that's for sure. I wonder if it's using the Sneak API for that UVSecure. Not sure anyway, and pip audit. But yeah, that's another thing to consider. Okay. I have a few extras. This is the trifecta part, and I'm just going to link to it. I'm not going to play it. We've already all had plenty of heavy metal. Okay. But Owen was inspired by the funny song that we did with, remember the curl heavy metal, like super heavy metal? That was awesome. TLS Connect. Hello. So he did one for HTTP status codes, and it goes through all the different HTTP status codes. So I'll link to that. You can play it. You make sure you turn on the audio because it's off by default. Because
it's pretty good.
It is pretty good. I do enjoy it. Gosh, I wonder if it has I'm a Teapot in there. I didn't listen that hard, but 4, 18, 19, whatever it is. That's a pretty good one. Okay, so people can check that out. That's pretty fun following on that. And who knows, maybe I might do some more fun stuff with songs later as well with some of these episodes. I think we can do it, but we're not doing it this episode. We got to play around. So another thing to announce is PyCon Austria is coming. When is it coming? In April 6th and 7th, and it's opening party on the 5th. I mean, who wouldn't want to go to a party in Austria, have some good beer?
Yeah,
it'd be great. Yeah. So I met some of the folks behind this at PyCon Slovakia 2018 when I was there giving a talk, and they're putting this on. I think it is free. Yeah, attendance is free, but space is limited, so you still got to sign up. So if you're near Austria, in Austria, or can take a train over to Austria and like to do that, check it out. I would absolutely go if I could, but it intersects with some family stuff that I can't get out of. So I'm not going this year, unfortunately, because of the dates, but it still would be fun, and people can check it out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. Another one, Leonard Richardson, the guy who created Beautiful Soup. This was sent in to me. I want to give a little bit of credit here as well. This one was sent in by Sumana, and she said, hey, check it out. New updates for Beautiful Soup. Apparently, this is a pretty big change. 4.13 beta 3 was just uploaded to PyPI. And hoping to get another round of feedback, says Leonard, before the final release, because apparently there's some kind of changes and stuff, and you can check it out. There's a Google Groups link to talk about the changes that he's proposing and trying out and so on.
That's pretty awesome. I think I've been using Beautiful Soup since I started using Python.
Yeah, I agree. If you scroll through the comments here, Eric Holscher says, I just want to say thanks. Beautiful Soup has been a constant utility basically as long as I've been doing Python. So I thought that was a pretty, you're on the same vibe there. Pretty awesome. Yeah, cool. So Beautiful Soup certainly rocks, and I've used it a ton as well. Okay, I have one more extra, Brian. Okay. But I want to close out the show with something special and unexpected for people. Okay? Okay. So in order to do that at the end, I think let's do the joke first.
I'm all for jokes.
Yeah. So you know what it's like to go to Stack Overflow, right? It's not... It's super helpful, but it can be a little prickly, let's say.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll submit a question like, well, that question was answered 7 years ago over there. You're like, well, yes, but it doesn't work that way anymore. Or, you shouldn't, why are you even asking this? You shouldn't do this, right? So this comes back to a very common sort of question, optimist versus pessimist. But we have a third category, a Stack Overflowist. Okay. So here's a glass. It's exactly 50% full of water. I mean, you can debate it's 100% full, but whatever. Like that's not the debate. That's a chemistry joke. This one is the optimist, pessimist versus Stack Overflowist. The first one is the optimist says the glass is half full. The pessimist says the glass is half empty. The Stack Overflowist says the glass is a stupid question. And so in the show notes, I entitled the joke, "That's a stupid cup or stupid glass."
I like it.
Pretty good, right?
Yeah. And then of course, I'm the nerd in me is looking at this going, well, visually it's halfway up, but since the cup is wider at the top, it's got more air than it does water. Anyway,
I would say pessimist wins. Stack Overflow comes in second. The optimist, no. That's a stupid cup. Okay.
That's a stupid cup.
All right. You ready for the last thing? This is pretty awesome. This is pretty wild. We live in incredible times. So I've started doing this thing over at Talk Python. This is only tangentially the actual topic. It is, but it isn't. I've started doing this thing called episode deep dive. So I wrote up on the Talk Python blog, introducing episode deep dives at Talk Python. And so if you go to any
And I'm embarrassed to say it took me a while to understand the snorkel reference. But
deep dive, yeah. Well, you got to pick something from your Font Awesome icons, and I'd already used up some other stuff, so it's a snorkel as the icon to click the button.
I like it. Yeah.
So now for every episode that I publish, I'm putting together what's called a deep dive. And actually, it's ironic that the older ones are better because the more of them I've done, the better I've got at, figure them out.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, it's so weird. So here, let's see space science. Let's have a deep dive. It does. Okay. So space science, this one is, I interviewed Thomas Albin about his YouTube channel and his work. I think it was a European Space Agency and so on. But instead of just having the show notes, now it has this thing called the deep dive, which comes into their background. It says, hey, if you're new to Python, these are the types of things you want to research a little bit to understand this topic really well. Like this one's about visualization. So it talks about Matplotlib and pandas and SpicyPy and VizViz. And then it goes into all the takeaways and links and documents and tools and excellent stuff to just make it way more useful, right?
Okay, that's nice.
So yeah, thanks. We might start doing that here. I'm trying to decide because our show notes are pretty close to this, but they're not exactly. We can play with it, but we've looked at it a little, right? It's a ton of work though. I don't have them all done. I'm back. I don't know. I'm back to 2022 and I've got to go back to 2016. So there you go. But many of the new ones are done, which is awesome. So here's the thing I'm going to close out the show with that I think is crazy. And I think people will enjoy. This is kind of a separate topic, but it just, that was the lead in because you'll see in a second why. Notebook LM. Have you played with Notebook LM?
No.
So Notebook LM originally came out, it's from Google, and it came out as a way to help people understand documents like researchers, professors, and so on. So what you do is you give Notebook LM a PDF or a couple of PDFs, and then you can ask it questions like, what do the researchers think about this? And it's based on all of their thing. But the most insane thing, and this is what we're going to close out the show with, is you can push a button. Literally, you don't have to give it prompts or anything. You just push a button and say, create a talk show similar to what we're doing here, talk show podcast episode of this paper.
What?
It is so insane. So if I was researching, I don't know, if I was researching something between Fast API and Django and somebody written up a really detailed report, I could upload that and I could just say, hey, I want to have a couple of people talk to me about the trade-offs, and it brings in other world knowledge, right? It's not just the words in there. It's kind of like ChatGPT in that it knows everything. And then it also just talks about this, and it is insane. So going back to what the heck with these deep dives, if you scroll down a little bit, there's a listen to a conversation about our deep dives. So those of you watching just the live stream, I'm not going to play this here because it's 13 minutes and 54 seconds. But you can go to this link here and just click the play button if you want to hear it. Okay.
Okay.
For everyone else, Brian, I'm going to put it as the closeout to the show. So there's nothing else, but I'm going to play this because it is an insane view into what is possible. So what I did is I took this deep dive conversation blog post, the deep dive blog post, gave it to Notebook LM, and I said, I want to hear people talk about it. So I'm going to drop that in and people can hear about it now. I think your mind's going to be blown, but if you don't want to listen to it, you can just, this is the end of the show. So
that's funny because you sent this to me and I started listening and I totally thought you just like somebody else was doing a podcast about your deep dives.
It's crazy if you haven't heard it. And it has interruptions like, oh yeah, or, and it's got that kind of artificial back and forth, but it's done in a really nice way. It's not just speech to text. It is something entirely unworldly. It is weird, and I thought it'd be fun to close out the show just to give people a weird glimpse into this world, and it'll talk about the deep dives if you care.
Cool.
All right. Well, with that, later, everyone.
Later.